Here we go.
All right, hello and welcome to Volunteers for Outdoor Colorado's virtual masquerade. My name is Anna Zavisha, and I will be your MC tonight. I've been on the VOC staff for about 5 years, but prior to that I was a volunteer, and so VOC is very near and dear to my heart. Thank you so much for being our guest. You all look amazing with your masks on, and I hope you're ready for a fantastic evening. Tonight, you'll hear about the state of Colorado's outdoors. You'll listen to our panelists who will share their experience with equity, diversity, and inclusion. And you'll have a chance to support VOC while also supporting local artists. So now we encourage you to please turn off your video as we begin our program. So first, I'd like to thank tonight's sponsors and everyone who made the masquerade possible, and there are many of you.
Oh, I treated this woman. She came to me.
So first, I'd like to start off with Alpine Bank. In addition to sponsoring tonight's event, I'd also like to recognize their support of VOC during the pandemic. They really went above and beyond to help us secure a payroll protection program loan at the start of the COVID crisis. This funding helped get us through some of the toughest time in our 36-year existence. This was the time when we were suspending our field programs, we were having to furlough staff, and we were really struggling with ways to bring in revenue. So thank you, Alpine Bank, and specifically Matt Teeters, Alpine Bank's regional president, who's with us tonight, for being such a strong partner. Other sponsors of tonight's event include Empower Retirement, Marathon, Noble Energy, Otten Johnson, and of course, our media sponsor, Denver Channel 7. We couldn't have gotten the word out about this event without their assistance. I'd also like to thank the event committee members who worked to make this event a big success. Thank you all so much for your time and dedication, as well as VOC's board and staff. So now I'll turn things over to VOC's Chief Executive Officer, Ann Baker-Easley.
Hi, good evening, everyone, and thank you, Anna, for kicking off this exciting evening. It's wonderful to see everyone and all your beautiful masks that you made. As I begin tonight, I was thinking about a car I was behind last week whose bumper sticker read, "Giant Meteor 2020, just ended already." And I think we must all feel a bit like this as 2020 has continued to unleash so many unprecedented events, from a worldwide pandemic to historic and sustained 3-digit temperatures throughout the West, to raging and widespread wildfires, hurricanes, and nationwide social and racial unrest in the aftermath of George Floyd's death. These are radicalizing moments that shout out for the need for action and a commitment to working towards a better future for all of us. And as Anna mentioned, VOC has had to adapt significantly during the pandemic, impacting our work in huge ways. We initially furloughed 50% of our staff. We revised our project protocols. We revamped our projects, and in some cases we couldn't do them in certain areas. And we reduced our volunteer numbers by almost 80% this year, even while we all witnessed the enormous impact of recreational users seeking COVID relief on our trails, in our parks, and across our open spaces. The number of visits to Colorado State Parks in May 2020, for example, was up nearly 300,000 people over the same time in 2019, even while services like trash collection, restrooms, and visitor services have remained unavailable to the public. The stewardship situation is further compounded by the prospect of declining state and local tax revenues in the coming months that will likely decrease overall park and open space maintenance efforts. So VOC has had its work cut out for us this year, and it will continue to be that way in 2021. Yet our 36 years of experience in leadership and caring for the outdoors is not exempt from continued careful and heightened examination of our practices that are independent of COVID-19. We, like many outdoor conservation and stewardship organizations, find ourselves at an important inflection point as we face the increased recreational use of the outdoors, growing and changing demographic and cultural shifts in Colorado, and heightened impacts from climate change. This evening, I want to share with you VOC's creed, which was developed and refined as part of our guiding principles. Recently, we began to openly share this more often, our creed, throughout our written materials, on our projects, and in our leadership training. It attests to the importance of creating a welcoming space for an inclusive and caring outdoor community. So here's our creed. At Volunteers for Outdoor Colorado, we believe that everyone has a place in the outdoors and in caring for them. No matter your background, we share the land as our home, and it is up to each of us to maintain it for the benefit of all living things. In all of the ways we connect to the outdoors, we believe we can find common ground in nature and can be united in our efforts to leave it better than we found it. We welcome everyone to be a part of our stewardship community and to find your place with VOC. But we also know that words are not enough. The lands that we steward today first belong to Indigenous tribes, whose principal kinship to the land needs to be our starting place for change and our grounding in how public land is seen and how it is spoken about. VOC's work to build an inclusive and diverse community to care for Colorado's outdoors requires us to acknowledge that we must listen more carefully and to learn from those among us who share a different story and a different experience in the outdoors. The stories that are shared tonight by our panelists are an initial place for us to start. One step in a much longer journey to better understand the diversity of outdoor experiences so that we can strengthen our collective commitment to ensuring the outdoors are accessible, enjoyed, and conserved for generations to come. I'm proud to say that 50% of the proceeds from this evening's event will be allocated for VOC's work in addressing issues of justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion. VOC's board is also committed to allocating additional financial resources to ensure VOC is able to focus careful and sustained attention to support staff and board training, engagement of DEI consultants, and cross-functional and cross-partnership development work. We certainly look forward to involving Taisha, Parker, and Scott, along with many others in this important work. Thank you all for your commitment to VOC, your interest in this vital topic that we are addressing this evening. We look forward to walking ahead together with you to make Colorado's outdoors the best possible place for everyone to enjoy. And now I'm happy to turn the program back over to MC Anna to announce our Corporate Partner of the Year. Anna?
Thanks so much, Anne. So this is one of my favorite parts of this event every year because I deal with most of our corporate partners. And if it was up to me, I would award every single one of them this award every single year. But we only have one award, and so I'm pleased to present VOC's 2020 Corporate Partner of the Year Award to Bank of America. This is a relatively new partnership for VOC. It started back in 2018. Bank of America sent a group of their employees to the trail construction project at Floyd Hill Open Space. And ever since that first event, they have shown their dedication to outdoor stewardship and to VOC through continued employee engagement. They organized actually 2 projects last year to bring their employees to VOC's hands-on opportunities, and supporting our Boots on the Ground program as a season-long sponsor. This is our highest level of sponsorship for our project work, and so we thank them so much for that involvement. Moreover, their My Environment team has organized these employee opportunities, but they also put on lunch and learns where I was invited to present information about environmental stewardship and the intersection with water. They've attended our Uniquely Colorado events when they were in person. They're here tonight supporting this event. But it was really their actions earlier this year that touched our hearts and solidified in our minds that this award would go to Bank of America. And this happened early on in the COVID crisis, during some of those toughest early days when we were canceling field programs, making difficult decisions to furlough staff. We were contacted by Bank of America's Erica McIntyre and Lisa Barnicki, and we were contacted directly, both Ann and I, and they basically said, what's going on? What do you need? We are here for you. We will make our grant funding available. We will shift it to a general operations grant rather than being program-based, because at that point we didn't even know if programs were going to go on. And moreover, that this grant would be doubled through a company match. They asked us what else VOC needed, what were our biggest worries. They really showed they cared about the long-term viability of VOC and us, and that they would help as much as they could. And I can tell you at that time, even sleeping was being affected for many of us, and we rested a little easier after that outreach. And moreover, we know that we're not the only nonprofit to have gotten this type of personal and proactive outreach. So we are recognizing them for the support that they gave VOC, but also all that they do in the community. So to accept the award, I'd like to recognize Raju Patel, Senior Vice President, Colorado Market Executive, and Denver Market President. And Raju, here is your pickaxe.
Anna, thank you. We're so happy to be nominated as the Partner of the Year. And I could have used this pickaxe when I climbed my first 14er in late June, Mount Sherman. So I wish I had this about a month ago. It would have been very helpful. As Anna said, my name is Raju Patel. I'm the Denver Market President for Bank of America. I've been with Bank of America for 35 years. Doesn't feel like it. Feels more like 20. And I'm thankful for many of our employees who are joining today. And I'm proud of them. As Anna said, we have a My Environment employee network, and I'm proud of their efforts to continue to help all of our employees find ways to reduce the environmental footprint, both at work and at home. And we're really proud to partner with VOC because like VOC, we believe that a healthy environment and access to nearby mountains and nature where our employees and customers live and work are critically important. And you should also know that we are one of the few companies that are carbon neutral. So not only do we stand behind what we talk about, but we back that up. And so we're one of the very few companies that have become carbon neutral, and we announced that earlier this year. And in addition to VOC, which Anna talked about, and the work we've done, we've also worked with other not-for-profits committed to environmental sustainability, such as We Don't Waste, Same Cafe, and the Grow House. And the other area that I would like to really highlight this year is the Urban Forest Initiative. And if you're not familiar with that, it's an effort on behalf of the Parks and Recreation and Happy Haynes and the City of Denver and the Mayor and the Downtown Denver Partnership and organizations to increase the tree canopy in downtown Denver, which stands at a paltry 4% right now. We're going to take it up to 10% in the next couple of years. Some of that planting will start this fall and into next spring. So we're excited about the number of trees that are going to be visible and to be enjoyed in a couple of years here in downtown Denver. And we contributed $500,000 toward that effort. So I'm really proud of my bank and Bank of America in supporting us and standing behind our sustainability efforts. So VOC and Bank of America share a commitment to Colorado's natural resources. And so Anna, thank you. I'm so excited to accept this award. And you can't read this, but the pickaxe here says Volunteers for Outdoor Colorado, VOC 2020 Outstanding Corporate Partner, Bank of America. So on behalf of Bank of America and our employees and my environment network and our volunteers at VOC, thank you for recognizing all the work that we've done and our shared commitment. We're really, really happy to be recognized for that. So thank you, Anna.
And thank you, Raju, and all of the employees present tonight at Bank of America, and of course, all of those that work across the country that are so important to this amazing community engagement. We want to thank the entire business community, including all of tonight's sponsors, because we could not have done this event without them, but also we can't do our work without the important partnership of so many of the business community. So thank you, Raju, and everyone tonight. This panel discussion that you will be a part of this evening was recorded actually 2 weeks ago, and we edited it for this evening's time constraints. But we will share a full link. We will share a link to a full version of the recording with everyone this evening and encourage you to watch it in its entirety. It is a remarkable and wonderful panel, and so exciting to hear all of this information that was shared during the panel. As you listen, I also encourage you to think of some questions that may arise for you. Please enter them in the chat box in Zoom, because we'll have a live question and answer afterwards with the panelists following the video. And now it is my pleasure to virtually introduce the Mayor of Denver, Michael Hancock. Mayor Hancock, a resident of Denver since his infancy, was elected to a third term as mayor last year. And we're so proud to have him serve as our community leader. I want to thank you, Mayor Hancock, for taking time to share your commitment to a healthy environment and healthy outdoor environment, and for your prepared remarks in introducing our panel tonight. Thank you so much.
We are blessed to live in a place rich with natural resources and natural beauty. These outdoor spaces have helped define who we are as a people. You know, my family often says we don't have to leave Colorado. This is the best place in the country for staycation. Our outdoor spaces have a lot to do with that. Whether you're here in Denver, Colorado, enjoying the great network of parks that this great city enjoys, or up in the mountains, where we really have the best wonders in the world. As we plan for Denver's future in the face of unprecedented growth and work to build a socially and racially just and equitable community, it is important that access to nature and green space remains a fundamental right for all residents. The game plan for a healthy city defines our vision for creating parks, gathering places, activities that are easily accessed, well-maintained, and equitable in every neighborhood. We are proactively working to ensure that every household in the city and county of Denver is within a 10-minute walk or row of a quality park. We're working together toward a Denver that embraces everyone by connecting youth, families, and adults of all ages with a park system of expanded resources, increased access, and quality programming that meets residents where they are. I'm proud to serve as co-chair of the National Mayors for Parks Coalition. Denver is recognized at the national level for its diverse, vibrant, and dynamic park system. We haven't done this work alone. Partners like Volunteers for Outdoor Colorado are working alongside the city to build a culture of stewardship, engaging communities to take care of their parks and neighborhoods today and for future generations. We couldn't do it without you, VOC. I am excited to acknowledge tonight's outstanding panelists who are keenly aware of these issues and are leading spokespersons in how we can collectively begin to respond and take action. Taisha Adams, Colorado Parks and Wildlife Commissioner and Colorado Leader and Policy Director for Outdoor Afro. Parker McMullen Bushman, Colorado State University Extension Director for the City and County of Denver and co-founder of Inclusive Journeys. And of course, Scott Gilmore, Deputy Manager of Parks and Recreation, Parks Director for the City and County of Denver. Scott has been someone that I have known for many, many years. I appointed him as my advisor to the Public Advisory Board for the City and County of Denver when I was on City Council. And today, he has been, for the last 9 years, a tremendous steward of our park system in the City and County of Denver. Ladies and gentlemen, enjoy this great panel.
My name is Ann Trujillo of Denver 7, and I'm excited to talk with this group today about the intersection of outdoor stewardship and inclusivity. And so I want to start with just talking about this beautiful state that we live in, Colorado. It is one of the most beautiful places on earth, I think, and we have ample public lands, should be welcoming to all, yet not all feel so welcome. So let's just start with that. Why is that? Where is the disconnect? Taisha, let's start with you.
I think it's a balance between what the laws say and what the customs say, right? And so the law will say everyone has access to this park or this wildlife area, when, the custom, the experience can vary from place to place. I think the big takeaway is that it's not constant. It's not, it really does. You have to be on guard. You don't really know what could potentially happen. Again, I did notice that those comments and those looks and those negative experiences tend to happen when there's more Black people, when I'm with more Black people versus when I'm by myself.
So is that what you all think is holding people back? I mean, I know there are statistics that indicate people of color are not enjoying the great outdoors as they could or should. Is it those experiences that is holding people back?
I think people of color are getting into the outdoors, but it's where are they going? Outdoor activities might look a little bit different, right? And so if you are outside, like Taisha said, rock climbing or hiking, there's excitement or acknowledgement around that. But if people are out, people go out to have picnics, people go out to play outside or take walks in their neighborhood, people hold community meetings outside, and we don't always hold those outdoor uses in the same esteem or light as some of the other uses. And so I think it's also about widening that narrative of what is an outdoor activity.
I'm a light-skinned person of color. I'm Black and Japanese. And so I have a privilege that darker-skinned individuals don't always have. I remember taking a group of kids we were headed to Southwest Colorado, and we stopped at a Pizza Hut. And the Pizza Hut actually told us they were out of dough when we walked in with 25 kids of color. And I've never heard of a Pizza Hut running out of dough. But this is a learning experience for those kids that they know. They then learn that they weren't always welcome. We've been at national parks and being followed around by rangers, where the little white kids were just playing and doing the exact same thing, but the kids of color were being followed by rangers.
And I think we talk a lot in general that there is systemic racism in a whole lot of systems. But when you're talking about our park systems, what is it? What change could take effect? What could we do as a community, as volunteers, as people out enjoying the great outdoors? How can we change that system to make people feel more welcome into what is available to everybody?
Systems are made of people, right? And so, I think there's changes that have to happen at the individual level, at the cultural level, and at the systemic level, right? And I think of Dr. Dorcetta Taylor's work, who's at Yale now. And she, in her 2014 report on diversifying environmental organizations that looked at NGOs, foundations, and governmental agencies. And she had 3 recommendations. One was around transparency and and tracking, right? So, it's great to have a plan, but are there measurable goals that are annual, that are shared externally? The second is around accountability. So I'm thinking performance evaluations, assessments, right, at that systems level. And then the last was around resources. So obviously training is going to be key to this, but training isn't the only component. And going back to what Scott said about going into some of these parks, also being able to see ourselves. I think of the call to, I go into visitor centers, I don't see anything on Black history or Asian history or even Indigenous history. It primarily is settler history. And so if we're talking about inclusivity, it's not just saying words, right? It is putting these words into actions.
It's also looking at the roots of our organizations, because when we founded things like the National Park System, right, there were people who still couldn't visit places because of segregation. And I know that gets passed down, So like in my community growing up, I remember my grandmother used to tell me, don't go outside, don't go into the woods, right? Because there was this historical trauma around things like lynching and things that bad things could happen to you in that space. So there's also this kind of historical trauma and memory around certain communities that communities need to work with and work on, and communities start to do our own healing and our own celebration in these outdoor spaces.
Scott, that City of Denver, you all have worked really hard to improve parks and create more park space. So talk a little bit more specifically about what you are doing to help those neighborhoods feel like they're a part of the City of Denver.
So something that the Parks Department in Denver has done is really looked at an equity lens and saying, hey, we have 260 parks in the city, but they aren't spread equally, and the stuff in those parks aren't all the same. So what we've done is actually created an equity map so we can look and see where there's a neighborhood that might have, communities of color, income disparities. So what we're looking at those is we look at those items and we try to determine where we need to be adding park spaces, and not only just adding a park space, where we can improve a park. One other thing I'd like to mention is we've got to make sure kids are connecting with the nature in their neighborhood. Let's connect people to their space, because trying to take people outside of their communities and connecting them with nature, it's a losing battle. We've got to connect them close to home.
Well, and the other issue that you're raising here, Scott, is that if we're going to try and take people to the high country and let's go climb a 14er, you don't just go climb a 14er in sneakers. And you need equipment. I mean, that's also pretty intimidating, is it not?
And I think that it also raises some other issues around transportation, around gear. And so when we talk about accessibility, it's not just one component. There are several layers depending on what you're trying to do. And I also just wanted to make a point around the importance of partnerships. Denver Parks and Rec does an amazing job partnering with schools and hospitals and community centers, really trying to find ways to leverage existing resources that that others have to come together. And I think of Parker and her work with the Summit for Action, where she brings together, environmental organizations, agencies in the Denver metro area annually, where we can come together and really work to dismantle some of these inequities, as well as reimagine what space and nature and the outdoors can mean and look like together.
What struck me with what both Taisha and Scott said is, that really understanding what communities need in how they access the outdoors. Like, I've seen organizations come in and say to communities, like, we want to do a program, we want to partner with you. What is it that you need? And the community responds, we would like to fix our nearby nature. We want to, can we make a garden that our community can access? Can we tear up this concrete basketball court to make an actual park with trees and things? And people hear, like the community gives that feedback, and what people hear are trips to the mountains, right? Because they are kind of stuck in the way that they relate to nature, and they feel like that is the only way, you know, to really get people involved. But like what was said before, that connection to your nearby nature is so important.
So we're speaking here before an audience of volunteers for Outdoor Colorado. So what would you say to them right now about what they can be doing to just make this a better place for everybody, a more welcoming place for everybody?
Who does your board comprise of? Do you have people of color on your board, first of all? And not just on your board to say, hey, we have a black person on the board or we have a Hispanic person on the board. No, it's not about just adding a person of color to your board. It's about being inclusive and hearing what a person comes to the board brings. Their historical aspects of you know, their engagement with the outdoors.
Look at your own friend group. If you don't see the diversity that you want to see in the programs in the outdoors, that's where you need to start, right? That's a really powerful way to start. And I did this work myself coming to Colorado. I realized, most of my friends are black or white. So I joined Latino Outdoors, and I joined Native Women's Wilderness, and I joined Queer Nature. And you show up, and you keep showing up before I ask for anything.
Parker, I know you work with organizations to help them become more culturally competent. How do you do that? What when you look at organizations out there, what is it that they need most, and how can that be applied to organizations that work with nature?
First comes the understanding, right? And that's where a lot of organizations start at. That trying to get an understanding of why this is so vital, why this is so important. And we see that our demographics across the nation are shifting so greatly. But when we look at the environmental movement, when we look at the conservation movement, it is still very much the same, right? It's still very much a monolith.
This is a survival thing for organizations. If you do not change right now, your organization will die. So I think this is something that people need to understand, that, yeah, they want to hold on to how it was, but this country is changing as we're watching. And I think people need to understand their survival, their organization's survival depends on them changing with it.
And it's not that there's not going to be something on the other side, right? Because people of color do care about the environment. People of color do care about the outdoors, right? And so you see a lot of groups that are coming up and that are forming their own thing because they are not finding a space within traditionally white-led organizations. And so, you know, what Scott said is so powerful, because those are the organizations that are going to flourish, because they are including everyone. They are really listening to this population that is growing and changing, and people are coming to those organizations, not just people of color, but also white folks are coming to those organizations because they want to be involved in something that's inclusive.
However, we also know that the wheels move very slowly when we're talking about change and systemic change. So how do we push that along? How can that be pushed along?
Yeah, and you know, inclusivity starts at home. It starts in in the conversations you have, the people you have in your life, what you're reading, what you're listening to. That's where inclusion can be the most powerful ripple effect across everything you do.
I think one of the most important things is to teach our children about the history. Our first national park rangers were black men that took care of our first national parks, the Buffalo Soldiers. People don't know history.
Right.
And to not know that and connect our kids to that and understand that it's okay for you to want to be a park ranger.
I would just like for you to ponder for a moment. Is there some message you want to get across that we have not spoken of yet?
Because what is happening is people will, they're diversifying the pipeline. That's great. But when they get into these organizations and agencies, oftentimes they're the only one, right? I'm the only Black person on the Commission for Colorado Parks and Wildlife right now. And it's a very lonely experience. And so having the opportunity to think about succession planning when you're talking about diversity, and making sure that the climate, when they arrive, that workplace climate is a healthy one, where they feel valued and seen and heard, is absolutely essential.
When you hear someone say that they are feeling oppressed and like that's what all they can focus on, we're actually taking the support that we need away from environmental issues when we don't address those, when we don't think about those. And when you work on social justice issues, you're actually also helping to save the environment.
Probably taught 250,000 kids easily how to fish in a 20-year career. And people have said, well, how many of those kids actually maybe bought a license or something? I'm like, I don't know. But guess what? If I didn't take that child fishing, somebody may never taken that kid fishing either. They'll look back on that when they're an adult and say, you know what? I remember going fishing. Maybe I should take my kid fishing. You know, if you don't give people experiences, how can they provide those to their kids? Mentor somebody. Show them it's okay to be outdoors. Just make it happen. Don't sit there and say, what can I do? Do it.
Thank you. Scott Gilmore, Taisha Adams, Parker McMullen Bushman, you all have been terrific and have given us great things to think about, and easy, tangible things that can affect change in this world. So thank you all very much. Appreciate it.
All right. Well, hey, everybody. I haven't spoken up tonight. My name's Dan Williams. I'm on VOC staff team as well, and I'm honored to be running the Q&A. And again, we'll say thank you to Taisha Adams, Scott Gilmore, and Parker McMullen Bushman, as well as Ann Trujillo, who moderated that for us. And I did want to let everybody know that we will be, there was a lot more to that conversation, and we'll be sharing the full recording with everybody who's attended tonight. So you'll have an opportunity to check that out, and highly encourage you to do so. So yeah, we'll be doing about a 10-minute Q&A. So please, now's the time, if you have questions, to put them in the chat, and I will pass them on in the order that they're received to our panelists. I did want to go ahead and get started, and Taisha, Scott, and Parker, if now's the time to make sure your video is on and your audio is on. I wanted to start with a couple of questions that we had come from the VOC staff, and the first one being, what kind of inclusive communication strategies have you all seen effectively used in reaching broader and more diverse populations, specifically in outdoor recreation and conservation work? Community outreach is certainly at the core of what we do at VOC. And Taisha, do you want to go ahead and start with that? And we'll just kind of give everybody an opportunity to respond.
I'm on mute. Sorry about that.
I got you now.
Thank
there you are. Hey.
It's important. I think that, you know, I have seen a lot of intentionality and effort. You know, I think some of the low-hanging fruit is in translation and making things that making sure that things are in the languages of the communities that are being served. I think there could be some, you know, going from good to great on that, is really making sure that your communications teams reflects the communities that you're trying to serve, right? So again, it goes back to being able to communicate inclusively. Is much better when you have an inclusive group of people who are creating the content. So content creation is absolutely critical. I look at the Recreate Responsibly campaign, and you know, just having the different grain sizes, I think, is really meaningful. I know in California, what I've seen with that particular campaign is they brought together a group of environmental organizations and outdoor recreation and industry folks, and and so they, you know, are co-developing these messages together. They're, you know, doing it on social media posts, but also humanizing these things. Because, you know, feeling, you know, walking that line between meeting people where they are, but also wanting to make sure that they have a full and rich picture.
Thanks. Scott, any thoughts?
Yeah, as someone that works in parks now, I did work for Colorado Parks and Wildlife for 19 years, but works in parks now, a big thing is building trust with the communities you're going to work with. This isn't about just going in and saying, hey, we're here, we're going to, you know, engage with your community. You have to actually, you know, be intentional and reaching out to a community in an authentic manner and making sure that your work is not just going to be for a month or 2 months. If you're going to really go work with a community of color and want to really make impact, you've got to be there for the long haul. The community I live in and I grew up in is the community that me and my wife, who's Latina, started a nonprofit called Environmental Learning for Kids. And that's the community that it's still going strong in. It's close to 25 years old. It's hugely successful, but it took years for people to trust us because we were taking their children and going hiking and camping and all these things. And families, you know, no matter what color you are, families are very protective of their children. And so there has to be a lot of trust built into this, and it takes time. So time is one of the biggest things that you have to invest to make sure that you're successful at this work.
Great. Parker, any thoughts on that question?
Yeah, I think communication is really a two-way street, right? So when we are talking about communicating with communities, we need to also think about what relationships we've built with communities and how what we're communicating appeals to their interests as well. So many times, you know, we want to invite folks to our thing, and without tuning in to what their needs are, what their interests are. And so it's really important to think about that when we think about outreach to communities, communication to communities. Is this a two-way street? Are we listening to the things that communities want and need? How are those reflected in our programming so that they want to be involved and come and join us?
Thanks. So next question, Parker, I'll start with you because the page who asked it from the audience, love that you mentioned that narrative needs to widen to celebrate other uses of the outdoors. So what are some ways you've seen picnicking, community events, walks in the neighborhood, other close to home ways of connecting with the outdoors celebrated to encourage more people to get out and enjoy nature?
Yeah, you know, I've seen organizations do things within neighborhoods. Like I was just on a trash pickup the other day that was in a community in downtown Denver. And, you know, they had done a lot of work with EcoCycle out of Boulder, and they'd done a lot of work with connecting to community organizations. And they didn't only say, okay, we're going to come and pick up and recycle things, but, you know, they added in an element of gathering in the park and doing chalk art on the sidewalk that honored some of the deaths that had happened recently in the community, some of the shootings that had happened recently in the community. And they were able to get people to turn out, right, and want to be a part of that. And when I showed up, you know, I met someone who was from the community that said, I lived here, I've lived here my whole life, and I wanted to be able to come and pick up and clean for our community. And then there were community members while we were in the park coming up and saying, what are y'all doing and how can we help? And thank y'all for caring about our neighborhood. So I thought that was a great on the ground thing that was a low entry point and combined art as well with things that were going on in the community. And it wasn't like we're going out into, you know, a faraway place to better that environment. We're doing something that's local. I think that there's lots of ways that we can celebrate the way that people show up outside, and it doesn't always have to even be an activity. Like you mentioned, picnics are great. Just outdoor events that celebrate the fact that, you know, we're outside. It might be in the city, but there are trees here, there's sky here, and we're celebrating what we can do in this environment.
Thanks. Scott, anything to add?
Yeah, I mean, you know, in a lot of these communities that that I either work with or I actually live in, I live in the Montbello community. You know, there's a lot of food deserts, and you've got, you know, substandard grocery stores. We don't have Whole Foods, and we don't have complete grocery stores. So a big thing there is, you know, urban gardens in the local school. You're not only addressing a shortage of food, healthy food in the community, but you're actually teaching people how to grow their own food and to cook their own healthy food, but you're also getting them outdoors. And so it's a great way of connecting the school with the neighborhood and the community and getting people out and growing good food. The other thing I did want to say is I did want to thank Bank of America for their amazing donation to the city. And what I've always told people is we need more trees in the city. And I've always stressed that I don't always want to take kids. I want to take kids to the mountains, but first, I need to keep kids here in the city, and I need to connect them to their neighborhood. One of my most important projects that I always like to work on is neighborhood tree plantings, because if I can get a bunch of kids to actually plant trees in their neighborhood park, guess what? They're going to take care of that park. They won't vandalize that park. They won't spray paint that park because it becomes their park. So we need to make sure that these projects that we're doing to improve our communities through green space, we definitely are connecting those communities to their parks in the community.
Thanks. Taisha, any additional thoughts to share?
Oh, I think they summarized it beautifully. Great recommendations, really powerful.
Awesome. All right. Question from Allison in the audience, and Scott, I'll start with you this time. Can the panel recommend any specific books, articles, other resources that explore the history and experiences of non-white populations in outdoor stewardship? Appreciate any and all recommendations.
So my daughter goes to school at DU, and she's given me these long lists. There are so many lists. There are so many books out there. I think Taisha already put up her hand that she already knows some books, and Parker knows some books. I'm more of a person that I just like going outdoors, and so I'm just going to tell you, I will defer to them to offer some suggestions. Read anything about the Buffalo Soldiers. I do want to mention one thing. One person I do want to mention, and I like to bring this up. We all bird watchers. There's probably a lot of bird watchers out there. We all maybe use an Audubon bird guide. I want people to know that Audubon was a black man. He was actually Creole and white. But when you think about Audubon Society being one of the largest conservation organizations in the country, and people just don't realize that the person it's named after was actually a black person. That's when I talk about history. We need to know that history, because I would say 90% of the people in Audubon Society don't realize that piece of history, that the organization that they're a part of actually is named after a black man.
Taisha, you want to take it from there?
Sure. So I've got a couple of experiential examples. One, my absolute favorite place when I arrived in Colorado to go to was the Black American West Museum. I actually put the link in the chat box. But it is a cultural center, really originated to tell the story of Black cowboys. It really widens the scope and tells the stories of early Blacks who came west and performed as miners and soldiers and homesteaders, ranchers, blacksmiths, school teachers, lawyers, all of the things. So again, when you don't see us here in these areas doing these things, there's a reason why. And so it's not just about doing right moving forward. But one of the things I've appreciated about being able to reflect back on history is that it's still alive today. So that's one. And then another one that I've been really excited about lately, and their children's library is one of the most inclusive children's libraries I've ever seen related to the outdoors. And that's our very own Rocky Mountain Land Library. They have a facility in Denver and Five Points area, and they also have some properties outside of South Park. And so really just a wonderful group that is walking the talk and really looking for partnerships. And then just hardcore books that I'm reading to unpack and tell a more inclusive story of our history is The Rise of the American Conservation Movement. I mentioned Dr. Taylor's work in the recorded discussion on the report she did in 2014 of diversifying environmental agencies and organizations. But this book really looks through a multi-racial lens and a gender lens when it comes to the history of our American conservation movement. And then lastly, something that's really struck me in my heart as a swimmer and a paddler is the undercurrents of power, the aquatic culture of the African diaspora. It's great to read. I've read Stand from the Beginning, the big book, and a lot of the others that are on those lists, but really also going back and acknowledging and unearthing the triumphs and the contributions, the rich contributions of the entire diaspora has been really outstanding. So I hope you enjoy those, and feel free to let me know what your thoughts are and if you have anything. I'm sure Parker's got some wonderful things I always learn from what she shares and the experiences she has. I'll knock it over to her.
Yeah, go ahead, Parker. And this will be our last opportunity. So just letting everyone know we're coming up against our time. But Parker, we'd love to hear more from you, and then that'll wrap up our Q&A.
Yeah, one book that I'd love to suggest is Black Faces, White Spaces. And it's written by Carolyn Finney, and she's amazing. Love her. And she's actually going to be coming to Denver. I know DMNS, I think, has announced that they're hosting, or sorry, not coming to Denver, virtually. DMNS is hosting a program with her later this year. So you'll definitely want to check that out, and I'll look for that link and put that in the chat. Another great book is by Dr. Drew Lanham, and it's called Home Place, Memoirs of a Colored Man's Love Affair with Nature. That's a great book. And the last one I'll suggest is Trace, which is Memory, History, Race in the American Landscape. So if you're looking for like some really good books that tie together racialized experiences and the outdoors and the environment, I think those are all really great ones. And you can read Carolyn's book and then go to her talk with DMNS.
Excellent. Well, thank you all so much for participating with us. We really appreciate it, and I'll just personally really enjoyed the discussion and looking forward to digging into the director's cut a little bit later. And so, yeah, thanks again, and to everybody in the audience. We'll be sharing that list of resources as well. So thank you, everybody.
All right, we are on to the last portion of the program. We are probably going to go just a minute or two over, maybe 5. So please bear with us, but this is a really exciting portion of our program because this is the fundraiser for VOC and for our local artists who are participating in the art auction. So as Anne said, 50% of the funds raised tonight will be used for VOC's Justice, Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion, or what we refer to as JEDI work. And we've brought together an amazing group of Colorado artists to raise funds for important stewardship work while also supporting them during COVID. So immediately after this event, you will all be able to access the online auction for a very special VIP viewing of the pieces that were submitted. You may place bids, including setting some maximums. And as an attendee of tonight's event, you'll have exclusive bidding access through this coming Sunday, September 20th. After that, we will open it to the general public for another week or so. As you heard, the challenges ahead are significant. Colorado's outdoors are a salvation for many people right now, but they're also really being loved to death and adversely impacted by the increased visitation. VOC's work over the coming years will be more critical than ever before. The artist community has also been severely impacted by COVID. Your support tonight helps both the outdoors and these local artists. So please click on the link that will be emailed immediately after the event. You'll be able to view all of the pieces. There's every medium that you can possibly consider. And we wanted to just highlight a few of the artists whose work you'll be able to bid on.
I'm Colleen Smith.
I'm Rick Romano.
I'm Mary Elliott.
My name is Rodney Buxton.
I'm Joni Emily.
My name is Barbara Yates Beasley. I'm a native of Boulder and an artist creating animal portraits and fabric collage.
I'm a wood turner from Golden, Colorado.
I'm a fine art oil painter.
I am a fine art digital photographer.
I paint in watercolor and acrylic.
And I paint in plein air, oil painting landscapes.
They are basically forms of art inspired mostly from our great Colorado outdoors.
I focus mostly on national parks.
During the pandemic, I just started painting and painting.
It became clear that making lemonade was our solution.
I had more time to actually spend experimenting with things and trying new ideas, things I never had a chance to do.
I actually have sort of been using this sort of stay-at-home time to actually go through a backlog of 12 years of photographs from national parks.
The bright side of it is that I've been in my studio creating all new artwork. It's also given me time to get out on the local trails with my dog and revel in the beauty that is our state.
Colorado is the place to be, and it's really important that we take care of our outdoor spaces.
We've all been outside a lot more, and so I'd like you to join me and help support our Volunteers of Colorado and their wonderful auction they're doing, and my fellow artists, because without them, we wouldn't be able to move forward and keep our wonderful state the way it is.
Okay, so at this point, we are going to do the drawing for our golden ticket winner. And I know many of you have been waiting for this moment. Thank you to everybody who bought a golden ticket. Some of you bought more than one, so you have more than one chance to have your name pulled. I'm gonna stir things around. The golden ticket winner will receive this original oil painting by Betsy Johnson Welty, who inspired and created the first logo, the VOC logo, which was used for over 30 years. And so here we go. Congratulations to Amy Beatty. Woo! Woo! VOC staff will be in touch to deliver Betsy's painting to you. So at this point, I do want to say thank you to everyone for participating tonight and celebrating the successes, recognizing the challenges that lie before us as well. Now we'll ask everyone to once again put on your masks, turn on your video. We will have a final farewell and a masquerade moment. You can put yourself into gallery view. Kelly, you can take off the PowerPoint and let's see all those amazing masked volunteers and supporters of the outdoors. There you are. Love the creativity. Well, thank you again on behalf of VOC for joining us. We hope to work with you soon in one capacity or another.
And thank you to all our panelists and to all those that attended this evening. You guys were terrific. Love the mass. So have a great evening and carry on. Thank you.
Bye.